Self-forgiveness does it for me. Response to JosephKou1's response to Lindsay LLCraver. Self-forgiveness doesn't work video. Sat at the back of the class as usual, lounging in the mind as usual. Things we're not supposed to do, things we're not supposed to do. Forgiving myself for everything that comes up, for everything that I see, for those that don't know about self-forgiveness, for those that won't forgive themselves. I forgive myself for everything. I'm not sure I'd recommend it actually, though I wouldn't like to put anybody off from working at it. Forgiveness, let's get this out once and for all, for my own sake, then I can let go of it, forgive myself for holding on to my forgiveness experience in the early 90s, where I was mulling over my experience with I defined her as a wicked stepmother. I forgive myself that I allowed myself to define my stepmother as a wicked stepmother. I'll get back to that when I watch the video back. Realising that the only option I had was to forgive her. If I didn't forgive her and let go of it, it would eat me, metaphorically speaking, or perhaps even literally, as I had seen the consequences of embittered memorization of experience in an older brother. And I have since realised that by accepting and allowing the abuse that he perceived he received, he actually destroyed himself. Self-forgiveness. Started forgiving myself casually after Adele drew my attention to it on the forum at destiny.co.za. I did a lot of forgiving for demons I was staying in a night shelter that was an old church that was still a church. Half of it had been turned into a night shelter and homeless hostel. Rather than expound my experiences with self-forgiveness and the wording one uses, as it is important that people realise for themselves what they are participating in. When I got back to my hometown a few months later, I found what I had to face and stand in the face of was not fearful as such as it needed to be done. And self-forgiveness, I found, assisted me in that. fears that were possible did not manifest if I forgave myself for those fears. Though fears is too strong a term for them, more like just facing what I had to face. Wasn't frightened of it. It had to be faced, and I would have preferred not to have faced it, yet had to. And that's when I started to forgive myself for don't want to use the word sins, though it fits, of those around me who were participating in all manner of bullshit, let's call it. Save video time. It is only recently that it has become most effective in my realisation of its application, perhaps, and how I am able to test my own participation. And when someone said to me, self-forgiveness doesn't do anything at all, I was taken aback. It gives me strength, let's call it. It's no such thing really. It assists me to face up to that which I must face up to, it being the consequences of my participations in all that I have participated in up to now or then. Self-forgiveness doesn't work, Lindsay. LLCraver says, and she expounded it convincingly, though at the same time very, what is the word, testing for reaction. Perhaps I'm being distracted by someone in the outside my front door. Not sure what they are doing, not really interested. They are distracting me. I forgive myself as I have allowed myself to be distracted from my vlogging. Forgive myself as I have allowed myself to concern myself with that which I need not concern myself with. And I agree with Joules. Perception of Lindsay's rationale, perhaps, let's call it. Self-forgiveness gives you nothing. Self-forgiveness does not work. Self-forgiveness is a tool one can apply to oneself, so that one may release oneself from patterns of I am gibbering though, regurgitating. Not too sure if it's regurgitation. I would have to have regurgitated it, and I have not actually regurgitated what I was spieling. The principle is that I know for myself, though to explain them to another, I would find it ineffective, and therefore would not actually attempt to do so. In fact, if anyone asks me about self-forgiveness, I will direct them to destiny.co.za. Of that there is no doubt. Work. You look up the word work in the dictionary, there's nearly as many definitions as the word block. Nouns and verbs, adjectives. There's so many. So try and get them in the description box. It is applicable in its usage in this application. Thank you. I forgive myself that I have allowed myself to respond to JosephKou1's response to Lindsay LLCraver's response to self-forgiveness does not work. Forgive myself that I have allowed myself to react by making video responses to videos that I have watched, and therefore I must have reacted to, or why would I be making a video response to them? One last point. I found writing self-forgiveness to be more liberating than speaking it, in fact. Thank you.